Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of The Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
It's okay with me.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Wake Up Heavy, Recollections of Horror. This is Mark Begley, your host. And yes, I'm finally getting to the March 2022 watch list news and notes episode. My deepest apologies for being so late on this.
Happy apologies.
March was kind of a crazy month. A lot of personal family issues going on. Those extended into early April. I took some time off as well for my birthday, which is at the end of March, and that jammed me up with work. And we've had some travel and all this other stuff, so apologies.
Happy apologies.
I considered doing a March / first half of April episode and cut it off for when we did this traveling, which was last week. Then I would do rest of April, May episode. I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to be late with March. There's a ton of movies on here. I watched a bunch of movies. Partly because of my birthday. I took the day before and the day of my birthday off and tried to watch as much as I possibly could. I also did a couple of recordings in March and the first couple weeks of April. So, just felt like I was being spread a little thin, kind of stressed out. Didn't force myself to get this thing done. Another thing I'd like to apologize for is my voice. It's probably pretty nasally right now. Been fighting what I thought was allergies for the last couple of days. And I slept on the couch last night, woke up this morning, and my throat felt very dry and sore. And I thought my chest was starting to tighten up. So I got a little bit concerned. We had traveled and been around a bunch of people last week. Went ahead and did a home COVID test, which ended up being negative. But something's going on. I am extremely nasally. Apologies for that.
Happy apologies.
All right, I don't want to spend too much time on idle chit-chat. Let's get into the movies. This is a considerable list this time, or it felt like I watched a lot of movies last month at least. So let's do this. Family watches, and I think these were all pretty much the three of us enjoying films. I didn't recognize anything as just a Cleo and me watch. Early on in the month, we watched the film version of You Can't Take It With You, and we had seen this performed by the drama class that my daughter is in at her school. She tried out for this play, didn't make it. but we went and saw it in February. Really enjoyed the play. The movie is quite a bit different in a lot of regards, but it was still really fun to watch. Very funny, very interesting ideas in it that I quite enjoyed. We watched again, and this is a repeat watch for all of us. I think we've caught it since this time too. We rewatched Uncle Buck, which is one of those John Hughes movies that I didn't watch when I was younger. I think I stopped at some point, like after Some Kind of Wonderful. I stopped being interested in what he was doing. But Macaulay Culkin's just a kick in the pants in this.
Waiting for your sex?
We watched the new Disney film Turning Red and all enjoyed it very much. We finally got around to watching the new Scream. I enjoyed it much more than the third and fourth in this series, and I think I can speak for everyone else in my family in that regard as well. That made me think of A Nightmare on Elm Street, which Cleo has brought up a number of times. We finally got around to it, but she ended up falling asleep. Ironic. And we didn't finish it. I think we finished it sometime over the last couple of weeks.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
And I believe she enjoyed it. We watched as a family the Academy Award-winning Coda and really enjoyed it. This was prior to the ceremonies, so we didn't know it was Academy Award-winning at the time. One day during the month, my daughter said, "Hey, what are some other Edgar Wright films we can watch?" Because we've watched Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And I said, there's Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and that's really it. And then I thought, oh no, there's The World's End, that third part of the Cornetto trilogy. And so we put those on our list and did finally get around to watching Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which I had never seen and enjoyed. I kind of dug the comic book or graphic novel aspect of the film, the way it was done. Didn't like a lot of the characters in the movie, but I think that's the point. The World's End was enjoyable as well. Probably the weakest of that trilogy, but still very fun. Again, Simon Pegg's character, and that is a total asshole. So my rewatches for the month, this first one is a movie that I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually enjoys, and I've enjoyed it from the first time I saw it. Probably my favorite Jim Carrey film, The Cable Guy. I dig Stiller's dark comedy in this.
I made you breakfast, and we were eating, and scramby eggs.
We had to get a new TV because our old one, the backlight thing, started messing up, so it looked like half the screen was in shadow constantly. Got a new TV. It's 4K. We don't have anything that's 4K, but I wanted to test out the color on it, and I was trying to think of the most colorful movie that I own that I could watch, and immediately thought of Suspiria, the original Suspiria. So I threw that on to test out the TV. It's an older DVD, so there's a lot of grain in it, and I think when stuff is being upcoded or attempting to be upcoded, it can get a little pixely too, but it did look pretty good, and I think my eyes, there's always an adjustment period with a new TV, and since then my eyes have adjusted and I don't really notice much of a difference from the prior one. I hit Alien and Aliens one day. They were both playing on one of our cable channels. I rewatched World War Z, which is not a favorite, but I wanted to see how it worked for me now. It's been quite a few years since I've seen it, and it's decent enough. That hive, fast-moving zombie horde new trope, isn't really my bag. I still like the slow ambling zombies. Rewatched Misery for the gazillionth time. I took a little detour and watched the original Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it just made me think about how sword and sorcery or sword and sandal or fantasy movies like this have never been my cup of tea. I think Dragon Slayer is one of the few films that I saw as a kid that I have since rewatched and really enjoyed. It just wasn't a genre that I got into, and I thought, well, maybe I should rectify that. So I kind of put it out on social media, hey, send me some suggestions. A few people did. A lot of the films that were suggested weren't readily available. I just kept this thought in the back of my head during the month. But because of Conan and Arnold, I watched my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie again, Commando.
And do me a favor. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired.
And then I happened to catch, and this is a weird movie, and I don't know what pulls me in, but if I catch this movie at the beginning, I will watch it. And even though the first time I watched it, I told my wife, I'm like, what in the fuck is going on in this movie? And it's Peter Jackson's The Lovely Bones. And I don't really like it, but it's such a weird mess of a film that I get sucked in. And I got sucked in again and watched the whole darn thing. I really don't understand what it is about that film. Another multiple repeat viewing for me is John Carpenter's Christine. And I watched this because it's on Netflix. And the last few times it's been streaming, either on a cable channel or on another service, like it was on Shudder a while back, and it's never presented in the correct aspect ratio, and I don't understand why. And I thought, well, you know what, this is my chance to watch it correctly. Especially with John Carpenter films, you need to have the correct aspect ratio because he uses the whole frame.
She had the smell of a brand new car. That's just about the finest smell in the world, except maybe for pussy.
Then at some point, I was searching for art house films, and in particular, I wanted to watch some Wim Wenders. And anytime I think of Wim Wenders, I think of Jim Jarmusch. And the reason I think about that is because for his, not technically his first film, but his first breakthrough film, Stranger Than Paradise, was shot on leftover film from one of Wim Wenders' movies. And they have this association in my brain because of that. And I wanted to watch something that I hadn't been able to get through before, and that's Dead Man with Johnny Depp. I remember watching this with some friends late at night, and I believe I fell asleep and found it to be extremely boring. And I thought, let's give that one another shot and get all the way through it. And I did, and I had this weird thing happen. I was watching the movie, and he's walking through this Old West town, and I saw a guy that I thought was Ed Begley Jr. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't remember seeing this movie on his IMDb credit list, but I know these things happen. And so I did a Google search, is Ed Begley Jr. in Dead Man? And it didn't bring anything up about the movie. It brought up all this other stuff about him almost dying. And I recall this story from when I was doing that series over at the Culture Cast with Chris. I rewound the film to this spot, and I was like, oh, this is just some extra that's wearing horn-rimmed glasses and has similar hair to him. It is not Ed Begley Jr. But anyway, it led me down this short little rabbit hole to this Rolling Stone article from the early 80s, shortly after the start of St. Elsewhere, which had become a pretty big deal. So I read this article, and there was this one section that I thought was extremely fascinating. I wish I had encountered it before I did the Culture Cast takeover with Chris, because I would have read this on one of the episodes. So I'm going to read from this Rolling Stone article. Not long after Ed Begley Sr. died of a heart attack in 1970, a series of unsettling, seemingly unrelated incidents befell Ed Jr. 1. While waiting to change buses on a South Central LA street corner, he was attacked by a gang of youths who beat him to the ground, kicked him in the head, and stabbed him with a knife, collapsing his lung. 2. While performing stand-up comedy at the Troubadour, he ran out to his car wearing a policeman costume from his act, was arrested for impersonating an officer, and spent the weekend in jail. 3. While driving his Carmen Ghia through an intersection, he was hit by a 67 Olds, wound up in a cast from his chest down, a la I Love Lucy, and later learned his fractured femur was set wrong, so his left leg is now a half-inch longer than his right, creating a wealth of back pains if he doesn't wear a lift in his shoe. 4. And this might be the creepiest one. While living in a Studio City, California apartment, he discovered the severed segments of a human body sealed in a hefty bag in the trash in the back alley. And then this little bit later on in the article, which I read to Mike and Chris when we recorded something different a little while ago. Ed Begley Jr. established an offbeat comic presence in so many split-second screen appearances and eccentric character roles that one could create a cult movie retrospective, Ed Begley Jr., A Study in the Cameo, which is what we did on the Culture Cast, so that tickled me to no end. So back to the Jim Jarmusch thing, that made me think of some of my favorites of his. I watched Down by Law.
Good evening. Buzz off to everybody. Oh, thank you. Buzz off to you too. Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And Stranger Than Paradise to round out a little black and white trilogy.
Good for nothing. Hadd itt azt az asszony. Ne vidd el a nézemet. You son of a bitch.
I watched the 1976 King Kong. I think it's 76. This is a film that I went and saw in the theater for somebody's birthday back then when it came out. And I remember thinking later on in life, I was seeing a poster or something where it said rated R, and I was like, well, that was weird. I was only like 7 years old. She took a bunch of 7 or 8 year olds to see a rated R movie? I'm not sure. I don't think it is. Or was then even. It's kind of fun. The full-sized Kong that they tried to use for that's only ends up in a couple of shots, is really humorously atrocious. Okay, now to my birthday watches, and this started on the 28th. Since my birthday was on a Tuesday, I was like, I'll take both days off. Didn't really watch any new stuff, except for one film on those days. I was looking more for comfort movies because a lot of stuff was going on in March. I did watch something I haven't seen in probably a good 25 years or so. Luis Buñuel's The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. I love his later surreal comedy of manners films from that later French period. I rewatched In Fabric, a modern favorite of mine, Peter Strickland, my boy, who saw Eraserhead with me. And then this movie I had been meaning to catch for a while, and I think it just popped up on Canopy. Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave with Ewan McGregor and Christopher Eccleston. Hadn't seen it in a long time. Forgot how horrible these characters are, especially Ewan McGregor. It's the point, but it can be so grating to me. The new for me watch for that day was The New Centurions. And this is a cop movie with Stacy Keach and George C. Scott that was pretty cool. On my birthday, I went strictly with comfort watches, and I started that out with Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. Next up was Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, you're pregnant?
And then I rounded all that out with David Fincher's Zodiac. And yes, that is a comfort film.
Then when I heard the good man came singing songs of love.
Another film that I haven't watched in I don't know how long. This was a regular rental of ours, or it was on cable all the time. Taps, that has Sean Penn, early role, Tom Cruise, early role. A really super young Giancarlo Esposito is in it, and another George C. Scott role. And I'm blinking on the lead now. The kid from Ordinary People. Why can't I think of his name? All right, I'll have the computer help me with that.
That actor's name is Timothy Hutton. Mark, you ding-elling.
And then this Spanish film that I've only seen once before, called The House That Screamed. I describe it as Picnic at Hanging Rock meets Pieces. For first-time watches, and I tried to watch a bunch of new-to-me films. I had mentioned, I believe in the February episode, that in March there were going to be a whole bunch of French Extreme films up on Shudder. I watched Inside, which is a home invasion / steal the baby film. I'm not really sure how to describe it. Another woman wants to steal the baby out of a pregnant woman's womb, which has happened in real life and is frightening to me. I think of the French Extreme films that I've seen, I enjoyed this one more. There's kind of a twist ending. There's some weird CGI with the baby inside the womb that I thought was, for one thing, didn't look very good and was unnecessary. So if that kind of thing, baby trauma, It's obviously very fake, but if that bothers you, skip this. It's extremely bloody and extremely violent and tough to watch, but interesting. This film that I remember from childhood that I've never been able to get through is Michael Mann's The Keep, and I was determined again to stick it out and get through it. Interesting visual effects, great score from Tangerine Dream. Still kind of a boring mess, though. This strange pseudo-giallo, and I believe that Heather Drain brought this up when we talked about Return of the Living Dead, by Donald Cammell, called Wide of the Eye. Another film that I have started and stopped a couple of times. And I don't think it was out of boredom. It's a really strange film, really highly stylized. It's a sun-drenched psychological horror film. For me, I guess I just had to be in the right mood. Got through it. Very interesting. Check it out. I believe that's on Shudder. To satisfy my noir itch, I usually have to watch some kind of noir film during the month. I watched Devil in a Blue Dress with Denzel Washington. Never seen it. Don Cheadle is fantastic in it. I wish he had been in it more. I absolutely love that guy, but he was disarmingly charming yet brutal in this film. And it just got announced that it's coming out in Criterion Collection. You can watch it all fancied up in 4K or UHD or whatever. I watched the documentary Memory, The Origins of Alien on Shudder. This is by the same director that has done documentaries on Psycho and, what's the other one? It might have been The People versus George Lucas, and then there's one more.
Alexander O. Phillip also made Leap of Faith, a documentary on the making of The Exorcist.
Probably not my favorite of his documentaries. That made me think of Jodorowsky's Dune. This is not a new watch, but I immediately watched that one. This next one is a film that I thought I had watched. It's one of those 2000s remakes of 1980 slashers, Prom Night. As I was watching it, I thought, oh no, I don't remember any of this. Although, and that doesn't mean I didn't watch it. It could have just been so unmemorable that I put it out of my brain. It's bad. Very bad. There's no mystery to it. You know who the killer is from the get-go. And there is just absolutely zero tension. And it's pretty damn awful. Some more new films. Foreign films, for that matter. This one was on Netflix called The Trip. And I think it was Norwegian. I'm probably wrong. With Noomi Rapace. Is that how you pronounce her name? A home invasion done with a little twist. Kind of humorous. And I ended up not liking how it ended. So I didn't give it a super high rating. But this next one I really enjoyed. It's a Welsh film. It's called The Feast. And it is on Hulu right now. And I highly recommend it. I think I usually post when I'm watching on Twitter. And somebody mentioned, this gave me very Killing of a Sacred Deer vibes. And I was like, yes, thanks. That's one of the things that was coming up in my head. And that has a lot to do with just how it's framed and shot. Really dug that one. Paul Verhoeven's new film, the Naughty Nun movie Benedetta, is also on Hulu. It would make a good double feature with The Devils, which is currently back on Shudder right now, if you want to have a very sacrilegious double feature.
Sacrilegious.
One of the films that I did an episode on last month, the Chow Yun-Fat film All About All Long, I watched to talk with Mike and Chris on Mike White March. I enjoyed it. And then this movie I've been trying to watch for a long time. It has popped up on Prime before, but I think in a truncated version, and a heavily edited version, is this Japanese film called Evil Dead Trap. Of course, with that title, obviously think of Evil Dead, which it does sort of riff on, but I found it to have a lot more similarities with Italian giallo films. Pretty brutal, very creepy. And this is a film that I've never heard of until this past year or so. I'm not sure which company put it out on Blu-ray. It sounded very interesting to me. It's called Siege. It's kind of the Canadian, even lower budget version of Assault on Precinct 13 that I quite enjoyed. Another Hulu horror film, and there'll be some more on my April watch list, was called No Exit. It's more of a, what do you call it, where people are trapped together in an isolated location. One location, people can't get out, something's amiss, we got to figure out who the bad guy is. Really enjoyed it, really well acted. These last couple movies sort of go back to that sword and sorcery bit, and I knew that this was coming out on Shudder and had seen the trailer for it a while back, a new animated film called The Spine of Night that harkens back to things like heavy metal and the films of Ralph Bakshi using the rotoscoping techniques. I didn't like some of the voice actors in it. They sounded a little too modern for me. It's just something about this genre that doesn't quite work for me. I really find myself zoning out after a while, and I kind of did that with this. A lot of the background animation is just absolutely gorgeous. So I enjoyed that, and the story was interesting to a point, and then I just kind of lose it after a while. And that made me think of a film, again, another film that I've never made it all the way through. I've tried. I think I've gotten about 20 or 30 minutes in to The Beastmaster.
In the world of dungeons, dragons, and Dar, The Beastmaster, the epic adventure of a new kind of hero.
It's Don Coscarelli, who's made one of my favorite films of all time. Like, I gotta do this. I gotta get through. Tanya Roberts is in it. So I finally made it through. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's got a lot of weird Coscarelli-esque shit in it, and so I enjoyed it for that. I did a search at one point. This is a little bit of a tangent.
It's time for another tangent.
I did a search through Xfinity's search function for Sword and Sorcery, and it brought up, of course, The Sword and the Sorcerer, and a number of other of these types of films. And again, nothing just stood out to me and grabbed me and said, you have to watch this. I'm familiar with a lot of the titles, and I know they're very low budget, but it also shows YouTube results. And the second YouTube result was Sword and Sorcery Saga Series something by The Dungeon Dive. And I thought, I know who that is. That's my friend Dan. Dan Davis is a guy known years and years ago, back in the 90s, and he lives, I believe, up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere now. I'm not sure which town he's in currently. But he has a YouTube channel called The Dungeon Dive, and you should check it out if you're into science fiction, role-playing games, sword and sorcery, Stephen King. He has tons of videos on all these different topics. And I found out about it because of my Stephen King series. He was kind of doing one at the same time, going through the books and ranking them. I just thought that was kind of cool to see a friend's project pop up as one of the big YouTube search results. Check them out. I mentioned the recordings that I've done. I am on the latest Ego Fest for the projection booth. I'm not sure when Mike and I recorded that, but it came out a couple weeks ago. So you can check that out on the projectionbooth.com. And then for Mike White and March over at the Culture Cast, they invited me to be on the All About All Long Chow Yun Fat episode. Chris and I recorded with a friend of his, Andy Gnosis, for the new Foo Fighters film, and we decided on this before Taylor Hawkins passed away. Studio 666, that's already out. And then just yesterday I finally got to record my episode of the Cult Movies podcast with friend of the show, Anthony King, on the Robert Altman film, The Long Goodbye, and that should be out either very end of April or beginning of May, and I will reiterate that on the April catch-up watch list news and notes episode.
It's okay with me.
I think my voice has just about had it. Thank you so much for listening. Check out those episodes of other shows I've been on. Oh, one final thing. I did put up all the old Why Didn't I Rent This episodes. When I did that, I put the original release dates on them so they wouldn't inundate everybody with 9 new episodes. If you didn't catch them because I did that, just scroll back. I think the first 3 came out in late 2018, and then the second volume was scattered throughout 2019, and the third volume probably 2019 into 2020. If you're interested in catching those single episodes, they are there. They are at the top of the SoundCloud page, but if you listen on another service, they poured it in at their old original air dates. So there's that. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay smart, stay healthy, and don't forget.
Anything can happen when you wake up heavy.
It's okay with me.
Thrown like a star in my vast sleep, I opened my eyes to take a peek, to find that I was by the sea, gazing with tranquility. Just then when the hurdy-gurdy man came singing songs of love. Then when the hurdy-gurdy man came singing songs of love. Hurdy-gurdy sang. Hurdy-gurdy sang. Hurdy-gurdy sang. Histories of ages past, unenlightened shadows cast down through all eternity, the crying of humanity. 'Tis then when the hurdy-gurdy man comes singing songs of love. Then when the hurdy-gurdy man comes singing songs of love. Hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy sang. Hurdy-gurdy, 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 hurdy-gurdy. Hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy sang. Here comes a roly-poly man, he's singing songs of love. Roly-poly, 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 he sang. Hurdy-gurdy, 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 he sang. Hurdy-gurdy, 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 he sang.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.